And you had the star of the show, your mate Gunther.
Gunther Wanker. There's lots of oddities about America's Cup. It's quite difficult to beat the winner, actually.
Yeah, if they've got their wits about them, it's harder.
Yeah, I don't think in Formula One you would be able to ever win a single championship if the winner would make the rules.
The job that you really have to do is the one in adversity.
Yeah, for sure. That's when you have to step up. I mean, ultimately, if you don't, then you're not going to be in the job much longer, I think. So,
lifting the trophy, that moment is just so much more fulfilling than just posting a profit in a P&L.
This is supposed to be a half-hour chat between the three of us, but I need to sort of rush the first bit. Otherwise, I feel it's going to take a very long time because I want to ask you about your experience on the boat today. So you became a cyclor for one day and were able to experience this America's Cup boat, Toto, in all its anger out on the ocean waves alongside Ben, who was helming, and George, who was helming as well for a period. What was it like? It was
very impressive, but I felt it's going to be how this is all structured here and built up. Even getting the health and safety instruction is, I think you're safer on your boat than kite surfing on some random beach somewhere. So that was very impressive, the standard.
It's good to hear. It's good to hear.
The processes are right.
The processes are right. So you have everything
in
place to win.
Okay.
And then going on the boat. But you can feel, at least I've been around many sports and I've seen team setups and the operations, and that looks really top notch. And then going on the boat was just pleasure. I was one of the cyclists, but like semi-cyclists, I could take it easy if I wanted to. So I looked around, I looked at the foils working and the impressive mast, and that was good.
There's a drone camera shot of you that's literally looks like you're absolutely living your best life and having the best fun. I mean, what did it feel like?
I did actually. It's so weird. We travel around the world in Formula One and we do lots of fun events and stuff and lots of sport. But this is what I haven't done before. I've been on hobby karts and lasers and kite surfing and flight boards and all of that, but that's nothing against going 40 knots in 8 knots wind. How does that even go? So, and then having the involvement, obviously, in the development part of the boat with you guys, was something. Did
you feel a little bit proud?
Yeah.
Your team helping us along this journey and creating that craft?
Yeah, obviously. But I do, but also being part of the crew in the boat, now I can put faces to it, and the cyclists. Sometimes you get a lot of media attention. Obviously, the driver gets, but it's a team effort, and I like how they've been pushing each other. Come on, give it all. Then I see the baseline of we're pedaling along at 250 watts, and now we go 500 in the cornering, which I didn't know that the cornering was so important. Yeah, very, very nice afternoon.
What about the performance, Ben?
Performance was good. I think maybe there's a little bit of a misunderstanding in terms of the cyclor output requirement. But
what does that mean?
Wasn't most efficient.
I don't know. That's what you said to me. I wasn't sure.
Yes.
When I was supposed to put the power down, but when you did put the power down, I think it was pretty impressive.
Well, you need clear direction.
Yeah.
Come on.
I need clear direction. At home also, I get clear directions. I know what to do and not to do. And here, I thought I'm not feeding in actually.
The same.
But then I did those fun peak watts, and then I said, "Oh, that was really nice. You fed in a lot, but only like for 10 seconds."
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, it's impressive the power these athletes put down. How does that? Do you think that's quite nice in a way that it's very similar to Formula One? The technology is obviously absolutely critical, but there is, other than the drivers, like you say, there's more of a human element in terms of the athletic performance, which is driving the overall performance. That's quite neat in a way.
Because I like team sports, but obviously in motor racing, you're alone in the car and everybody works in the background. But what I like in sailing, what I've experienced today, is that you're driving it, but you're one part of the equation. Then there's the other guys are doing the navigation and some of the
trimming some of the sails,
and then the 4 cyclists.
Yeah.
So you're all in this together. Everybody plays its role, and you're all in the boat together, which was a new experience, and that is different to Formula One.
Toto, what will be another new experience for you is the idea that this cup, for all its bizarre nature, runs from 1 year to the next 3, and you only have this one moment, sort of every 3, maybe every 4 years, to really show what you're all about and what all the effort and work's been moving towards. What's your sort of assessment of that? With Formula One, the seasons roll into one another very quick, and obviously you're always looking ahead constantly, but it's a different approach. So what's your assessment of how the cup teams have to behave in the lead up to competition and ahead of what we are now walking into, which is the business end of it?
I think definitely there's lots of oddities about America's Cup. It's clearly the peak of sailing, the high tech, the best sailors, most professional setups. I mean, this is Formula One on water. But then the winner gets to make the rules. That's an interesting aspect. It's quite difficult to beat the winner, actually.
Yeah, if they've got their wits about them, it's harder.
Yeah, I don't think in Formula One you would be able to ever win a single championship if the winner would make the rules. But it is what it is. You have to just be better. And then this notion of every 4 years, a little bit like the Olympics and the Football World Championship, is a difficult one because you never know where you stand. You're setting these targets and is it good enough or not? And then you could be starting sailing and you're just far off, or you're right in the game, and that can certainly lead to some frustration, I guess.
Yeah. And
what does it feel like for you, Ben? Because you have got that, it's a totally different approach to how Toto would operate with the Formula One team, isn't it? It is this moment in time that happens and this build up, this huge crescendo to that moment.
Yeah, it's very much in stages, getting the rules and setting the strategy, working through that strategy, trying to execute on that. And then this period we're in now where everyone's trying to jostle for position, figure out where they stand in the pecking order. No one really knows until we start getting some more official racing or practice racing. And then still in that period, it might be that the teams that are performing in the early rounds, not necessarily as you get to the later rounds, because there's still a lot of performance left to gain. And the conditions will undoubtedly change as well. We know that here in Barcelona, it's really changeable weather-wise. So there's a lot of variables. There's a lot of, as they say, golf left in the hole. So got to keep pushing hard.
Last time out in New Zealand, there was obviously a relationship that had begun there between Mercedes and INEOS Britannia. That has evolved. How has that evolved? How has that relationship, at the risk of sounding like we're on a therapy couch, not the relationship between you two necessarily, but how has the collaboration between the Mercedes team and the sailing team really evolved over that period of time, would you say?
I think Ben and I, we don't need any
counseling,
therapy, partner counseling, because there's a lot of romance in our relationship. No?
I think so. A bit of a bromance.
Bromance, a bit of a bromance. Okay. But Susie and you are always nearby, so that's good to know. The thing is that, at the beginning, I guess the impulse came from Jim, and that it made a lot of sense, but putting sailors together with motor racing people isn't intuitively the thing you would do. And I think it needed some adjustment time before it really clicked. And all of us are trying to do the best possible work and to be successful with the project. For us, it was interesting because some of our people weren't that excited anymore about Formula One. They wanted to do something else, and then we were able to really good people to put them into the sailing project. Is a good way also in learning about different things.
Yeah, I guess it's an exciting place to put your resource, isn't it? To try out different things.
Yeah, so we are pretty limited in what we are allowed to do in Formula One outside of, let's say, the regulations. But the sheer fact that you're putting people on hydrodynamics when previously they would only look at downforce, suddenly that needs to lift actually is interesting. And then in Formula One, we do apportionment. So we can have people that work in both, and that's beneficial for our cost cap. So we did some of that. But in all truthfulness, at the end, you want to give it the maximum power. And within America's Cup, we ended up with a very, very big and strong core team. So I think this is just how it needs to be done.
And Ben, from your side, where would you say the biggest sort of impact has come from the Formula One team?
Well, firstly, we've learned a huge amount, across the board from the partnership. So thanks again. And I think maybe in a smaller way, there's been some reciprocal learning.
Definitely.
Just, the scale of the organizations is really what sticks out. America's Cup team typically is around about 1/10 of the scale of a Formula One team on particularly on the technical program. And so we're a bigger technical organization now through this partnership. And then it's been about really utilizing that resource and putting it to where it matters, because it'd be easy to go off and start looking under all of the rocks and getting distracted. And that's really been what we've tried to focus on. And some key areas, really fluids and simulation, a little bit manufacturing as well, and reliability, which is so key in your game. And it's the same for us. If we have the fastest boat in the world, but if we can't get it around the racetrack when it matters, then that's no good to us. So yeah, a huge amount of learning. It's been a really, really, for me, it's been a fascinating process.
And what about the commerciality of it as well? Because I think Formula One is a hop, skip and a jump ahead, isn't it, of where the cup would look to Formula One as a leader in the commercial approach. I mean, even Toto with, the recent life cycle of Formula One with the Drive to Survive piece and a few other ways that it's really been broadening its audience base. I mean, what do you think the key lessons you could impart for Ben and the team are on the commercial factor? Because that's how it's got to survive, isn't it, moving forward in this modern era where, they're clambering for space sports.
I think Formula One has been around for 70 years, and that must not be forgotten. But in the same way, the Cup was around for longer. But putting on a great show, it's all about the entertainment factor. And I think Formula One has been putting on a great show. I think when you look back at 2020 and 2021, especially the big controversies that they existed, and at the same time we were the only sport that was actually able to putting something together, whilst everybody else couldn't in COVID. People were watching at home. Netflix at the same time got quite some traction and interest.
And you had the star of the show, your mate Gunther.
Gunther Winter. I've written a foreword in his book because he's hilarious. He's probably, and he's
that not on a serious note, some of those teams' survival relies on the entertainment factor too, right? They have to be visible for sponsors to be attracted to keep those teams going, which keeps Formula One going.
But it comes down to being authentic. Gunther is authentic. Yeah. He doesn't talk any differently in real life. And he clearly was the main standout person for that team. But I guess that the younger drivers that came in, they have lots of social media activity. Liberty allowed that because previously, we were very limited in what kind of content we could broadcast from the paddock. And all of that came together and made the sport grow faster and bigger. And most interestingly, very different new audiences. So young females is something that the sport was particularly weak in. And now the strongest growing audience is women between 15 and 35. So that's interesting.
Damn, I'm out of that bracket. Never mind.
Just.
But Ben, your take on that as well. I mean, you have been long campaigning for the modernization, not at the expense of the tradition, but in order to sort of take it forward, what needs to happen.
Yeah, that's really the example for us to see what can be done if a sport is properly managed and commercialized. So you have the balance between the F1 circuit, if you like, and then the teams. And for it to really work, both have to, I think,
but is there successful. An appetite? Is there an appetite, though, within Cup world, within the sailing world, within the teams like R1 in pushing that conversation forward so that these changes do happen? Because when it happens,
you see it in Sail GP, you really see it, which is very similar to the F1 model, where we have the league that is neutrally managed effectively to operate the commercial interests of the event, the league, and then the teams, which are now independently owned, but in a franchise model. and that is really starting to get some traction commercially. The Cup has amazing history and prestige as a brand, but it doesn't have that neutral management. It doesn't have the continuity. It's like you said, it might be every 3, 4, 5 years till the next event, depending on who wins it. And I think really whoever wins this next event, or certainly in the near future, they need to sit down and get the different stakeholders together and say, right, what's a 10, 20-year vision for this event? Because again, it's got a huge amount of potential that's just not realized.
Can we talk, Toto, about the business of sport? I think you're the perfect person to have this conversation with, because you're a huge sports fan. You're massively passionate about sport, but you came into sport this way via business. Has your philosophy, your business philosophy, evolved or changed over however many years as a result of how you need to react to sport? I feel like there are so many more variables, or would be so many more variables within the sporting context, that it's not just the results thing. There's a whole other bigger piece there, especially the emotional bit. So has your sort of philosophy evolved in that way?
I think at heart, I was always a racer, was a young racing driver, couldn't afford it anymore and went into finance. And when I came back, success on track always stood more important for me by a mile, 1,000 miles, than the financial success related thereto. And I think that's the mindset you need to have. Now, obviously, we all living in a real world, and being successful on financially is also important, particularly if you're running a sports franchise. But we were able to combine that in a way. We were more successful. We are growing the revenue side. The governing body changed the landscape by introducing a cost cap, which was good. So we were not outspending each other anymore. But what unites people with sports is the emotion, like you say, because it's in a way on a Sunday afternoon, it's the most important, not important topic. You can go into heavy arguments with competitors and fans among themselves, but on a Monday it's maybe pub talk, and it doesn't really negatively or positively affect your life, but it creates a lot of emotion, and that is something that only sports or music or theater or film can do, but you don't get that kick in an office.
And have you become sort of less or more rational with age? Because I often wonder, from a business perspective, you're basing things on rational decision making. Sometimes with sport, it's so unpredictable that, those things can go out of the window, and it's a gut instinct that takes you forward. I mean, what do you think to that?
I think gut instinct is something important, because there's more cells and neural links that's going up this direction and not the other way. But when you are in sports, you never change. I would give up every cent of profit for success at any time. And when you tell that to normal business people, they think you've lost your mind. You're grown up adult. You have to look after your company. What you want to achieve is solid cash flows. And then you're talking about on-track success. Who cares? But we do, because we're sports people, and the on-track success and the victory and lifting the trophy, that moment is just so much more fulfilling than just posting a profit in a P&L.
I mean, you're entering into this world, aren't you, Ben, big time, with SailGP, with Cup Life, moving from being athlete to business person.
Don't change.
Yeah, but it's really important, isn't it? Because do you actually have to, bearing in mind you've got that mindset, you've always had that mindset of a professional athlete, like Toto's saying, actually that you should stick with that. That's actually a really huge advantage.
Well, you're not going to lose that mindset just because you're not necessarily competing on the water or competing in a race car. You're still competing, even if, we've seen Toto a lot with the emotion of being there on the radio to the guys and everyone else in the team living that moment, even if they're not in a racing car or not on a racing boat. There's a lot goes into these organizations. It's very hard for people, I think, fans, they look at the car, they look at the boat, to realize what goes on behind the scenes, the amount of effort required. And for anyone to work in Formula One and work in America's Cup, the hours that are required, you can't just be doing that for the paycheck. You've got to love it. You've got to have that determination to be part of a winning organization like Mercedes has been for so long. And I can understand the pain for you with the dominance and then suddenly being on the back foot. You want to be back there where you and your team deserve to be.
It's certainly the pressure is a factor, because so many people work hard for so little reward. And you got to acknowledge that we are so lucky, blessed that we're in such a situation. But we work 7 days a week, 356 days. How many days are in the year?
65 days a year.
300, yeah, nine less. I work 9 less holidays. No, but we're working all day, 7 days a week. There's no day where you're not on. But it's just, on the other side, I haven't worked a single day because it's what we love to do. It comes natural, and that is something which you always need to cherish, because that's not a given.
But does it feel like you're now, I mean, there's absolutely no way you sort of have the mentality of a startup, but it feels like to actually go again and to sort of come back from being out of the mix, which is, where you were for a while, which probably felt, like Ben said, incredibly painful. Is it quite galvanizing to sort of say, does it create a siege mentality at a moment where it's most required?
I think you need to, what I'm trying to have a long-term perspective. And as running the team and being a co-owner, I want to look back in 20 years and say we won many championships. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we're winning every single one. And we've pushed the boundary quite far already by doing 8 in a row. So since then, we finished 3rd and 2nd. So it's not that we've completely lost it, but there was just another team which was much better. But in comparison to our other competitors, we were still more successful. Some of those competitors haven't won a championship since 15 or 20 years, we must not forget. So I'm trying to bring some kind of stability in there. And that means if we get it wrong, we will improve. If we get it wrong, we will improve. And this is a normal cycle, and we'll feel very difficult at times, but it's important to come back up. And I'm sure we will, and look back and say, that was difficult years. Sometimes you said on the siege, but it's just part of sports. You have to admit, you can't win any championship, any year, every year championship. There is no sports team in the world that won every single year they participated, unless you quit. We don't want to quit.
And also perspective, right?
Yeah, but I think, and you will get it back and you will win. I know you can't say that, but it will happen. That will be probably the most rewarding victory that you and the team have had, maybe other than the first victory.
You've had this, haven't you? I mean, you've had serious adversity with the last couple of cup campaigns, and it's bloody hard work.
It's amazing how shallow people can be.
Yeah, but you have to bounce.
It's not even holding back. I mean, it's literally.
Yeah.
But you have to bounce back.
Yeah, you do. So what else are you going to do? You're going to dig your head in the sand and.
But as a leader, how important is it to step up when that happens? Because like you say, Toto, when it's all rosy and it's all great, everyone's on that journey with you. But actually, the job that you really have to do is the one in adversity. Yeah,
for sure. That's when you have to step up. I mean, ultimately, if you don't, then you're not going to be in the job much longer, I think. So, yeah. But it's tough because everyone's frustrated and but somehow you have to find the balance between, it can't be, it's okay, guys, we were just unlucky. There needs to be a reality check. This isn't good enough. We've got to get our act together. But at the same time, you can't throw the toys out of the pram because you won't get the best out of people. So find balance there to find.
So next few months, what do you think is going to make the difference? Because we know with F1, a season goes through a season and you have upgrades coming all the time. With the Cup, there is a similar program. You do have a program of upgrades and developmental work going on behind the scenes over it goes on for a very long time, doesn't it? Over a decent sort of 8-week period or so. So what will make the difference in the next few months to success or failure?
Really, from what I've seen, it's quite close on the water between the teams. And to answer your question, what will make the difference? Really, the teams that can continue that progression in performance across the range of wind strengths and sea states. And that's really the key to this period now. We're going to start doing some informal practice racing next month, and then we have end of August we have the final warm-up event. That final warm-up event will really set the benchmark of really which teams are performing when, and there's not a lot of time after that to really recover if you're on the back foot. So these next few weeks are absolutely critical.
I know what it would mean to Ben to win this thing. What would it mean to you, Toto, and the Mercedes partnership? Because there's this common phrase in the America's Cup, which is there is no second. So if we were to October the 21st or whatever it is, lift up that massive 120 kilo old mug.
Let's not get ahead of
ourselves. No, let's get ahead of ourselves. What would that feel like as a combined effort?
I think in a way you need to visualize these things also. Only when you can visualize, you can actually make them happen, but you mustn't talk too much about it because you destroy that visualization. It's so difficult. I mean, winning the cup with the set of regulations that do exist, it's tremendously difficult. And you can see the pattern. Team New Zealand, how many times did they win it?
They're going for, they've won it 4 times now. They're going for 3 in a row.
3 in a row. You can see how difficult it is. And I think you are the underdog. We are the underdogs, if I can say we in this project, because you're on the back foot. But it just feels good to, if I started to follow America's Cup last time around when we were trying to help out, because that's what we did, no more than this. And I'm sure that when the event starts going, I will be all in. There's not a lot more than cheering that I can do. You wouldn't
you say that, Toto. You
after
could actually
today's
jump
effort,
on the boat
you can get on the boat now.
Exactly. Now we know we've got you lined up as a cycler. That's it. You're done.
We'll send you a fitness program.
Yeah,
You've got
I think I can
2 months to get there.
I
reckon you got a shot.
I can get the peak watts, but not the endurance. Yeah. But no, I guess I will be cheering. Okay. I can give you more contribution by cheering than by being actually actively involved.
We expect nothing less. Thank you so much, both of you.
Thank you.
Join us for the Performance People podcast every week for the highs, lows, lessons and stories from people like this lot. Michael Johnson.
Some days what I would see is a person who is a shell of what I used to be.
Eddie Hearn.
We don't operate in a business that's dangerous, but we just operate in one where you've got to sleep with one eye open.
Mo Farah.
It couldn't get any harder than what I've gone through, and at that point I just went for it.
Paula Radcliffe.
You can only control yourself.
Susie Wolff.
And Toto did once liken me to a donkey.
Every Tuesday, wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, Performance People listeners. My name is Freddie Carr and I host a podcast called The Inside Tack, which is a podcast that follows the British America's Cup team, INEOS Britannia, as we get ready for the 37th America's Cup down here in Barcelona. We also follow the youth and the first ever Women's America's Cup. We would love you to like and subscribe to our podcast. Follow us on all your social media channels as we get ready for our sporting challenge of a lifetime.